The Flight Attendant and the Fugitive Part 6. Chapter 19, Midnight Meeting, Gun Under Table. Bangkok shimmered like a mirage, neon, smoke, jasmine, and secrets. The air at midnight was thick with heat and traffic and distant thunder. On the rooftop of the Mandala Hotel, a bar wrapped the building like a glowing ring, glass railings, white couches, low music that pulsed like a heartbeat beneath the clinking of cocktail spoons. Alice sat alone at a corner table, back to the skyline. She wore black silk. No jewelry. Hair down. Lips the color of bruised cherries. In front of her, a single drink. Lychee martini. Frosted glass. Icy stem. One skewered fruit glistening like a secret. She didn't sip it. Not yet. Her eyes were on the entrance. She'd sent the message 6 days ago. Through the same back channel Julian used to bribe Eastern European bankers and smear whistleblowers on encrypted dark web forums. She'd kept it simple. Meet me. Just us. You want the file back. I want the truth. Mandala rooftop. Midnight. No tricks. Oh. Then she deleted the burner, flushed the SIM, and waited. Antony hadn't asked questions. He just kissed her once, slow, and said, "Whatever happens, I'm close." And he was somewhere nearby. Armed. Watching. And so was the FBI. The rooftop bar had 12 guests, all spread far apart. 2 were real tourists. The rest. Agents. Posing as couples, solo travelers, businessmen with mysterious watches. Their body language was loose, but their eyes were sharp. She could spot the earpieces now. She'd learned to read the angles of someone carrying under a linen shirt. Every one of them had a gun. Just like she did. Beneath the table, in the velvet-lined purse at her feet, her fingers curled around the handle of a small, silent pistol Antony had given her 3 safe houses ago. Just in case he smiles first, he'd said. 11:59. The elevator chimed. Alice's pulse didn't spike. She'd already counted each beat. The doors opened. Julian Carter stepped out like he owned the sky. White blazer. No tie. Hair too perfect. Smile too polished. He looked rested. Tan. Possibly post-massage. He walked across the rooftop slowly, as if the air itself parted for him. Alice didn't move. Not when he sat across from her. Not when he signaled the waiter for a drink. He didn't speak right away. Neither did she. Let the silence build. Let him wonder. Let him sweat. When he finally spoke, his voice was soft and syrupy. "I thought you'd be hiding in a cave by now," he said. "Or dead." Alice lifted her martini. Finally took a sip. It was perfect. "I've always preferred a view," she said. He smiled, that same predator smile that once made her knees weak. Now it just made her skin crawl. "You surprised me, Alice," he said. "Really? I underestimated you. I thought you were just another glass doll in stilettos. But now." He leaned forward. "You're a liability." She tilted her head. "You're sweating, Julian." He blinked. That got him. "You came," she said, setting her drink down. "Which means you want something." "I want my files back." "You mean the ones where you planned to destroy every single diplomatic channel and pin it on Antony so you could wear his empire like a tailored suit?" His smile faltered. Just slightly. And here I thought you were the emotional one, he murmured. You shouldn't have used my face. You gave it freely, he said, voice sharp now. You think you were special. You were perfect. Pretty, naive, always standing 2 steps behind. And every time a camera snapped, the world saw a little more of me. Funny, she said coolly. Because tonight, they'll see you. Julian froze. The realization came slow. He started to turn, too late. The rooftop door opened again. FBI. 3 agents. Then 4. Then 6. Guns weren't drawn, not yet, but hands were on holsters. Jackets unzipped. Badges visible. Like a stage cue in an old play. Julian stood, backing away from the table. You think this will stick, he hissed at Alice. You think they'll touch me? I'm not him. I don't kill people. She stood too, facing him full on now, ice cold. No. You just turn them into weapons, then walk away when they explode. He shook his head. Furious. Cornered. Antony will never forgive you for this. I'm not doing this for him. Then who? She smiled. Me. An agent stepped forward. Julian Carter. You're under arrest on suspicion of criminal conspiracy, illegal financial manipulation of diplomatic accords, and obstruction of international justice. Julian raised his hands slowly. Turned once. And saw Antony standing in the shadows by the bar. Expression unreadable. Sued sharp. A ghost from a better story. Julian didn't say a word. He just laughed. Short. Hollow. As the cuffs clicked into place. The agents moved him out in silence. Alice sat down again. Picked up her martini. Twirled the lychee with the tip of her finger. She could feel the cameras from 3 different angles. Hidden ones. Official ones. A 4th was already streaming to the secure press account she'd just anonymously submitted the files to. The world would know. Tomorrow morning, she'd still be the Mafia Mistress. But by noon, she'd be the one who took down a kingmaker. Antony sat across from her a moment later. She didn't look at him. Just said, I wasn't sure that would work. He poured himself a drink from her glass. Took a sip. I was. Chapter 20, Tabloid Redemption. The news broke at 6:17 a.m. Bangkok time. Alice didn't see it right away. She was standing ankle-deep in the sea, barefoot, the hem of her cotton pants soaked, her hands wrapped around a too-hot coffee cup. The air smelled like salt, smoke from some far-off breakfast fire, and the first hint of storm in the distance. Antony was still inside, probably half-dressed, probably on his 3rd burner call of the morning. She hadn't asked. She didn't want to know yet. Not today. The villa was alone from someone who owed Antony a favor, another stretch of beach, another stretch of time they weren't sure they deserved. The walls were whitewashed. The bed was too big. The Wi-Fi was laughably bad. It was perfect. She heard the screen door creak behind her. He walked out barefoot too, shirtless, holding his phone, face unreadable. You're on BBC World, he said, like he was telling her the toast had burned. She raised an eyebrow. He handed her the phone. The headline. Not a mafia mistress, a heroine in heels, former flight attendant Alice Edwards helped dismantle billion-euro criminal network. Below it, a photo she didn't recognize. Not a tabloid shot. Not a grainy surveillance still. This was recent. Clean. Sharp. Taken by one of the agents, probably, during the debrief. She was walking down the marble steps of the US Embassy in Singapore, post-arrest, pre-press release, wearing a white linen dress and sunglasses. The wind caught her hair just slightly. She looked like a woman walking out of a movie. Alice handed the phone back. "That's a stupid headline," she said. "I agree. Heroin in heels. I was wearing sandals." By noon, 5 more articles appeared. CNN, Sky, Le Monde, Vanity Fair. Even the Daily Mail, who had once posted a photo of her eating a croissant with the caption "Mistress or Mastermind," now ran a front-page apology and a list of 10 things you didn't know about Alice Edwards. They got 6 of them wrong. But the photo was nice. The FBI quietly removed her from the persons of interest database. Interpol's red flag disappeared from her record. 2 ambassadors released statements with phrases like "deep appreciation for the bravery of the individual in question" and "a pivotal asset to the successful dismantling of an international corruption network." She didn't read them. Instead, she lay on the hammock and watched the clouds. She let her skin get too much sun. She let the world spin without her. Antony came and went, whispering into phones, half listening to the waves, always within reach but rarely speaking unless she did first. She liked it that way. They didn't need to fill the air. Not now. Not yet. On the 3rd day, someone recognized her. A Canadian couple at the beach bar. "Wait, are you?" the woman asked, squinting behind oversized sunglasses. "You're her, aren't you? The flight attendant. From the thing. With the diamonds and the..." Alice smiled politely. "No," she said. "I get that a lot." They left her alone. On the 5th day, Antony handed her a small folder. Inside, her real passport. A printed letter of release from the FBI. A bank card tied to a legitimate account. And a boarding pass. One way. First class. Anywhere she wanted. She looked up at him. His face was unreadable again. "I thought you might want options," he said. She looked back down. Then, carefully, folded the documents and slid them into the bottom of the drawer. "I do," she said. "Just not today." The next morning, the papers ran a follow-up. "Mystery woman declines interviews, spotted on remote beach in southern Thailand." No photo. Just a blurry silhouette. Her outline in the surf, walking alone. Alice closed the tab, smiled faintly. The world was finally moving on. And she wasn't chasing it anymore. She reached for her martini, lychee again, because why not, and let the day unfold exactly as it wanted. No headlines. No meetings. No lies. Just a warm breeze. A calm sea. And the distant sound of Antony cursing at the espresso machine. Chapter 21, One Last Loose End. It arrived in a white envelope, sealed with no return address. No postage. No markings. Just a handwritten name on the front. Tony Gold. Which wasn't his real name. And also wasn't not. Antony found it slid under the door one morning, resting like a cigarette left by a ghost. They were still in Thailand. The sky had been restless all week, clouds hanging heavy over the water like a curtain refusing to lift. The air was electric. Somewhere inland, thunder grumbled every few hours like a bad joke. Alice was inside, halfway through a book she wasn't really reading. Antony stood on the porch, turning the envelope in his hands. He didn't open it right away. It wasn't until nightfall that he brought it in. Alice was barefoot in the kitchen, feeding slices of mango into the blender with one hand and swatting mosquitoes with the other. He held it up. "Delivered in person," he said. She looked at the envelope. Then at his face. "You don't look thrilled." He didn't answer. Just opened it. Inside, a single silver key, wrapped in wax paper. And a card. Thick, matte black. Embossed in tiny white letters. Private Vault Route de Malagnu, 6 Geneva, Switzerland. Access code, Carter J. Alice reached for it. Turned the card over. On the back, in looping cursive, "Game's not over." She stared at it. Let it sink in. Then said, flatly, "Of course it isn't." They flew to Geneva 2 days later. Antony didn't want to. He said it felt like a trap. Like a move on a chessboard where the pieces were poisoned. But Alice insisted. "You don't ignore the last loose end," she said. "You cut it clean." They flew under assumed names, through obscure airports, and landed under the cover of heavy clouds and Swiss silence. Geneva was cold, wet, and indifferent. No one noticed them arrive. No one ever did here. The vault was located beneath a high-security banking facility 2 blocks off the river. Polished marble. Neutral suits. Guards that looked like retired assassins with dental plans. The elevator took them down 3 levels. Alice's fingers tapped against her coat pocket where the key now lived. Antony stood beside her, expression carved in stone. Neither of them spoke. The deeper they went, the more the quiet pressed in. The vault was small. Steel walls. Fluorescent lights. No cameras. Just a single door with a digital panel and an old-fashioned lock. Antony input the code, Carter. Alice slid the key in. Turned it. The door clicked open. Inside, a metal case the size of a small suitcase, marked with a strip of red tape. No alarm. No explosion. Just money. Stacks of euros, dollars, francs, even a small pouch of rough diamonds. A rainy-day fund. And beside it, a note. Handwritten. Not typed. Alice reached for it. Antony stopped her. But she was already holding it. Already reading. "Every empire needs a resurrection plan. You took my crown, Alice. But don't forget, I trained you. And I never lose." She finished it. Folded it once. Then twice. And dropped it directly into the open flame of the vault's small security lighter. The paper curled. Blackened. Disappeared. Behind her, Antony watched. "You're not worried?" he asked. She turned. Eyes sharp. Calm. "I'm done being worried." She stepped closer. "So he has money. So he's got plans. So what? Let him crawl back out of whatever hole he's in. Let him plot. Let him buy new suits and call in new favors and whisper new lies into someone else's ear." She looked him dead in the eyes. Let him come. The silence held between them. Outside the vault, the world waited. Still dangerous. Still full of names and faces and shadows that wouldn't stay dead. But Alice wasn't scared anymore. Because Julian's power only worked when people played his game. And she was writing a new one. They left the vault empty-handed. They didn't need the money. They had each other. And enough diamonds stashed away to outlive any headline. As the elevator climbed back toward the light, Antony glanced over. "Did you mean that?" Alice arched a brow. "Which part?" "The part where you said you weren't worried anymore." She smiled, crooked, sharp, and just a little bit wicked. "Worrying is for amateurs." Chapter 22, Married in a Monsoon. The rain started 15 minutes before the vows. Not a drizzle. Not a gentle whisper. A wall of water, crashing out of the sky like a drum roll that never stopped. Alice was already halfway down the sandy aisle when it began, barefoot, wind in her hair, laughing like she was being chased by something divine. She didn't stop. Didn't pause. Just lifted her soaked train off the sand and walked faster, eyes locked on the man waiting at the makeshift altar beneath a garland-draped canopy, both of them absolutely drenched. It wasn't supposed to be this way. The sky had been clear all morning. A pastel painting. The kind of blue that looked fake in photographs. The weather app said 3% chance of rain. Someone joked they'd bribed the clouds. Everything was perfect. Until it wasn't. But no one left. No one complained. The guests, a small, strange constellation of allies, friends, fixers, and people who owed Antony or adored Alice or both, simply opened umbrellas. Or didn't. A few danced barefoot on the wet boards of the dock. Someone poured champagne into a shell. The rain was warm, like the air itself had decided to cry from happiness and couldn't help itself. Alice's dress had been ivory once. Now it clung to her like silk paint, soaked, transparent in parts, sticking to her collarbone, her thighs, her stomach. Her hair was a wild, tangled crown. She wore no makeup anymore. Just water. And wind. And a smile like she knew a secret no one else could touch. Antony watched her come closer like she was a miracle walking out of the storm. He'd already ditched the shoes. His shirt was unbuttoned at the throat, sleeves rolled. The rain slicked his hair back, ran in rivulets down the hard lines of his jaw. His hands were steady. His eyes were not. He looked like a man in awe of the very thing he'd somehow convinced to marry him. When she reached him, she took his hand. He whispered, "You're soaked." She whispered back, "You're not dry." A beat. They smiled. And then the officiant cleared his throat, sheltering a worn leather book under a now pointless umbrella. Everyone leaned in. The waves crashed behind them. The sky cracked with thunder. And they said the vows, not perfectly, not with trembling voices, but boldly. Not one single person moved to dry a tear. Because no one wanted to miss a second of it. When the final words were spoken, and the officiant pronounced them married under a roaring tropical sky, Antony didn't wait. He pulled her close, soaking wet, thunder in the distance, applause rising all around, and kissed her like there wasn't a storm. Like he didn't know it was raining. Like the sky hadn't broken open just for them. Like they weren't two criminals turned legends, bound by chaos and choice. Alice's hands curled into his soaked shirt. The guests cheered. One of Antony's old guards wept openly. A Thai bartender threw rice in the air. Someone set off a paper lantern, which immediately got caught in the wind and flew sideways into a tree, causing more cheering. It was absurd. It was wild. It was perfect. Later, barefoot and wrapped in dry blankets, the newlyweds sat on the beach while the last of the storm ebbed. Alice's dress hung from a branch, dripping like a ghost. Antony's shirt was somewhere near the bar. Their wedding rings were plain, brushed silver, and looked like they'd always belonged on their fingers. He leaned close. So he said softly. Do we tell them we already got legally married a month ago in Montenegro? Alice sipped from her coconut. No, she said. Let them have this version. He smiled. Ours is better. She kissed his cheek. Ours is real. Behind them, music played low and lazy from a single speaker. People danced in the wet sand. Umbrellas lay abandoned. And above it all, the sky finally cleared. Stars winked down on the soaked ceremony. And the sea breathed easy. As if it, too, had been holding its breath for this moment. Chapter 23, The New Normal. The coffee arrived at exactly 7:45 a.m., like it did every morning. On a silver tray. Porcelain cups. 2 slices of toasted coconut bread. And a folded linen napkin scented, somehow, faintly of gardenias. The man who delivered it was named Thomas, and he once served as personal valet to a now exiled Central African king. He never mentioned it. But Alice had Googled him out of curiosity, and Antony had confirmed it with a raised brow and a knowing smirk. Now Thomas worked for them. Not because they needed staff, but because Thomas was the kind of man who could steam a linen shirt in 30 seconds, assassinate a drone mid-air with a decorative umbrella, and pour espresso without a single ripple. The villa was perched on the western ridge of Calavra, an island Antony had quietly purchased 6 months ago. Not for flash. Not for ego. Just to disappear. The entire island was 10 kilometers across, mostly forested hills and crushed shell beaches. 2 villas. A private airstrip. No press. No paparazzi. No extradition treaties. Just privacy, and each other. They called it home now. Alice was sitting on the terrace in a pale robe, one leg curled under her, sunglasses too large for her face, scrolling through her tablet. The sea below was lazy today, flat, sun-struck, almost theatrical. A sailboat drifted past on the horizon, probably rented from her concierge company, a private travel. Her business. Her name. Well, her new name. Technically, she was now Alice Gold. But she rarely used it. Clients didn't need her real last name. They needed access. And she gave it to them: yachts in Capri, safaris in Tanzania, luxury trains through Mongolia, private chefs in St. Baths. She handled billionaires with the soft confidence of someone who used to pass out champagne to arms dealers and lie to Interpol for sport. Antony joined her a few minutes later. He was shirtless, in loose cotton pants, his hair still damp from the outdoor shower. A single towel hung over his shoulder like it might fall just for the drama. He picked up his coffee, kissed the top of her head without asking, and sat down across from her. Neither of them spoke. They didn't need to. He read the day's intelligence briefings on a tablet with a cracked corner. Old habits, she thought. He couldn't stop tracking global movements, not because he was planning anything anymore, but because it was how he relaxed. Russia's currency hit a new low, he said after a while. Millimeters, she replied, sipping her coffee. Should we feel bad? No. Their new finance minister was at our wedding. Right. The one who tried to flirt with me during the storm. He was trying to hire you, Antony said. I stepped in before you accepted. Alice smiled. Only because you knew I'd demand more money than he had. Behind them, the butler cleared away the breakfast tray in silence. The sea breeze moved through the hanging curtains. The palms rustled. A lizard scurried across the floorboards like it had somewhere very important to be. In the distance, a small jet could be heard taking off from the airstrip. Alice glanced at the time. "Client in the Maldives," she said. Antony nodded. "The London banker with the twin girlfriends." "Dubai now," she replied. He pivoted. It was absurd. It was indulgent. It was peace. But what made it sweeter was that they both knew, deeply, what it had cost. The tabloids had stopped chasing them. The FBI had moved on. Julian's money had gone dark. And Zurich. Zurich was a memory. A cold, sharp, concrete life full of secrets and surveillance. A place where they once tiptoed through every hour. Now, they walked barefoot. After breakfast, Alice wrapped her arms around Antony from behind as he stood watching the ocean. "You know," she murmured into his back, "we could still sell this place. Sell the island." To who? "I don't know. Someone with more money and fewer trust issues." He turned, amused. "Are you bored?" "No," she said. "Just, completely, utterly not bored." He kissed her. And for once, it wasn't a kiss born from urgency or danger or goodbye. It was just a morning kiss. Simple. Domestic. Ordinary. And utterly, impossibly perfect. Chapter 24, "You're under arrest." Just kidding. The sound of a boat engine shattered the quiet just after noon. Alice noticed it first. She was waist deep in the infinity pool, drifting on her back, sun on her face, pretending not to care that Antony had just beaten her 3 times in a row at floating chess. The board still sat on the pool's shallow ledge, pieces glistening like polished ivory in the sun. But the engine noise didn't belong to any of their boats. Not the villa skiff. Not the supply barge that came once a week with Thai peanut brittle and overpriced French cheese. This was government smooth. Military clean. Too quiet to be local fishermen, and too direct to be tourists. She blinked once. Then stood up slowly, pushing her wet hair back. Antony. He already knew. From the terrace, he looked out through his binoculars, the matte black kind he kept casually beside the bar, next to the cigars and the encrypted radio. 2 men in navy jackets. Plain clothes, but the stitching screamed agency. The boat wasn't flying a flag, but the logo on the side was faint. Alice didn't need to zoom in to know what it said. Interpol Investigative Unit. She reached for her towel. Not because she was cold, it was 32 degrees out, but because old reflexes die hard. By the time the boat reached the dock, Antony had changed into a crisp linen shirt, unbuttoned at the collar, barefoot, tan, and completely unconcerned. He didn't carry a weapon. He didn't need to. Alice joined him with wet hair and mirrored sunglasses. She wore a silk robe in coral pink that looked like it cost more than a judge's annual salary. It did. Thomas, their butler, had quietly retreated into the house, though Alice was certain he had 2 sidearms tucked under his jacket and was watching the scene through a hidden camera feed. Some things never changed. The 2 agents stepped onto the dock with the kind of caution that said, "We don't want trouble, but we're prepared for it." They were both young, early 30s. Polished. Expensively plain. One wore aviators. The other held a thin folder under his arm. They smiled politely as they approached. Antony raised an eyebrow. Alice didn't smile. "Mr. Gold," the first agent said. "Or should we say?" "No," Antony cut in. "You shouldn't." The agent paused. then laughed. To Alice's surprise, the second agent laughed too. "We get that a lot," he said. There was a beat of strange, tense silence. Then, "We're looking for another island." "You're not it." Antony blinked once. "Excuse me. This is Isla Calavera, correct?" Alice nodded, arms crossed. "Yeah," she said slowly. "Privately owned. No extradition treaty. And the only person you'll find here is me, my husband, and one former butler to royalty who plays bark at 5 a.m. with military precision." The agents exchanged a glance. Then the first one held up the folder, opened it, and revealed a photo of a completely different couple. Middle-aged. Scandinavian. Some kind of luxury tax fraud, if she had to guess. Not even remotely close to her or Antony. Alice let out a low, incredulous breath. Antony's face remained unreadable. "You're on the wrong island," Alice said at last, deadpan. The agent looked embarrassed. "Seems we are." Satellite ping was imprecise. "We were tracking a twin jet out of Macau. Looks like it diverted midair. Our apologies." "Good luck finding your white-collar fugitives," Antony said smoothly. They shook hands. No cuffs. No accusations. No backup hidden in the trees. Just a brief mix-up. The kind that would have caused cardiac arrest a year ago. Now, it barely scratched the surface. As the Interpol agents walked back to their boat, Alice waited until the engine started again before she turned toward the house. Thomas reappeared silently at her side. "They gone?" he asked mildly. "For now," Antony said. Alice held up a finger. "Wait for it." She opened the vintage cooler beside the bar and pulled out a bottle of Perrier Jouet Belle Epoque. The label still cold. Still sweating from the ice. She popped the cork without ceremony. Pop. It echoed across the water like a champagne cannon. Antony raised an eyebrow. "Celebrating?" "Of course." She poured 2 glasses and handed him one. "To near misses," she said. He clinked his glass to hers. "To wrong islands." They drank. The sea shimmered. The agents disappeared into the horizon. And the storm clouds stayed away. Chapter 25, Happily Ever Rich. The private jet hummed like a lullaby at 41,000 feet. They weren't going anywhere in particular. Not this time. No country to escape. No vault to crack. No agents to dodge. No fake passports tucked in their shoes. Just a flight plan that looped them in circles over the South Pacific, airspace leased for the day, with coordinates as pointless as they were decadent. Alice called it their airborne honeymoon. Antony called it practice for the afterlife. The cabin was wide, white, and impossibly quiet, the sort of quiet that only money could buy. Cream leather. Gold-rimmed windows. A bottle of Krug resting in a silver cradle beside 2 untouched flutes. Alice sat sideways on the cream velvet divan, barefoot, one leg draped over Antony's lap, a silk sleep mask pushed back on her head like a crown. Outside, the sky stretched on forever, pale blue above, mirror sea below. They could have been flying into heaven. They weren't. They were circling it. He was reading something, a novel, maybe, or a very suspicious intelligence dossier he claimed was light reading. Alice leaned over, lips brushing his ear. Her voice was playful, low. "What's your name today?" Antony looked up without smiling, but his eyes betrayed him. That familiar glint. That sparkle like he'd just stolen something again. He set the tablet down, curled an arm around her waist, and said smoothly, "Mr. Edwards. Husband. Island owner. Very lucky man." Alice kissed him. Not a peck. Not a goodbye. But a "you don't have to run anymore" kiss. The kind of kiss that made the cabin pressurize just a little differently. The kind of kiss that didn't fade at 41,000 feet, it amplified. She pulled back slowly, lips barely brushing his. Then whispered, "Correct answer." The jet coasted through a streak of sunlight. The gold hit the windows like a kiss from the gods, and for a moment, the whole cabin glowed. Alice leaned her head against his shoulder. He wrapped an arm around her and pulled her in closer. Their hands intertwined, rings catching the light. No turbulence. No interruptions. No headlines. Just sky. And silence. And the kind of peace you have to earn through every impossible decision, every closed door, every twist of fate. They could have landed anywhere. Monaco. Marrakesh. The Maldives. Or nowhere at all. It didn't matter. Because they weren't passengers anymore. They were pilots. Of their story. Of their empire. Of whatever wild, lawless, glittering chapter came next. Outside, the light deepened. Not to black. Not to blue. But to something richer. Something warmer. Something gold. That's the end of this story, but trust me, the next one is even more thrilling. We drop fresh episodes every day, so don't miss out. Like, subscribe, and stay tuned, you won't want to miss what's coming next.
Because every broken heart deserves a comeback. If this story touched you, don't forget to subscribe for more emotional romance every week. Hit like, drop a comment, and ring the bell so you never miss a moment of romance, redemption, and powerful love. And don't keep the drama to yourself, share this story with someone who lives for twists just like you. Thanks for listening, and remember, sometimes the best comeback is becoming unforgettable.